where the drama starts. Lap 30, 8 laps to go. Sandobi hoping to take advantage of these lapped cars. Pilecki dives onto the right side. Very aggressive here. This is lap 4. The two Viceroys. Bill Frazier ahead of Matt Pilecki. Frazier's off. Frazier hit the grass. You hit that tire wall, your day is done. Well, now it's lap 20. The Williams still trying to get around the Terrell team as he'll go around the left car and around those at the same time. At the same time, he's got the inside corner. Will he ride the curb? Yes, he will. He will get him on the inside. Dino Maria leading us all into Moss's corner. Look at the beauty as his right side will cook the grass a little. A 180, no, a 360. Oh. Who will yield going into this corner? It's really not meant for too wide as it will be Gernald. Gernald will yield. Lots of smoke picking up from that Williams car. He is pushing it to the absolute limit. 26 of 30 now. Only 4 laps to go. He's going to get the run coming out the final corner. He's going to pull up side by side with the leader. It's going to be a drag race to the finish. Who is going to get there first? It's going to be...
The preacher has been on his pulpit since the green dropped in round 1. Even when under pressure, no one has been able to break his focus. But Imola is a track that is not kind to mistakes, and suffering any slowdown penalties might allow a slew of fast drivers to sneak by. Will anyone be able to tempt Norlapi to commit the racing sin of overdriving the car? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Lotus 79 Classic Teams Championship. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacher. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, Formula One started racing here shortly after the era of the Lotus 79, though it looked quite a bit different back then.
Except for the chicanes at Tamburello, Villeneuve, and Variante Bassa, which nowadays is only a chicane in the motor layout of this track. Actually, you're right, Joe, it has changed quite a lot from the long gone days. Currently featuring 17 turns, this 4.9 kilometer long circuit started its life in 1953. However, if you travel back, you'd recognize nearly nothing of the track, as it merely was suburban streets connected with small roads making up this anti-clockwise circuit. Traveling forward a few years past the tragedies this course has seen, we see a nearly unloosed land ahead of us. Barely being put on calendars of racing series these days in real life because of very strict noise regulations only allowing racing on 4 weekends of the year, we can enjoy this track to its fullest on iRacing. Exactly how enjoyable this track is to drive? Well, you're going to find out now as we send you trackside with our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we've got Juha Norlampi in the GSRC Lotus 79, so let's do a lap around Imola. Down the front stretch, you're kind of weaving back and forth trying to straighten out the track. Then comes Tamburello, which will probably be your best place to attempt to pass. Try to hug this first apex, don't track out too far after the second, and then let it fly through the third. As we come up to Villeneuve, it's going to be tempting to try passes, but the faster first half of the chicane makes it very, very tricky. If you come in here too wide, you'll probably lose a lot of time. Then, it's a short burst up to Tosa. This car does not like accelerating out of slow corners, so expect a few drivers to lose it while trying to get to the power. But it'll be important to get on the gas as early as you can because it's a steep climb up to Piratella. Every ounce of momentum counts. It's always incredibly hard to get the car to turn into the apex here. You can use some of the AstroTurf on the exit, but it doesn't really offer much grip. For Aqua Minerale, you're going to be slowing, turning, and braking through the first half. Very tough. Then, the second half is even slower. Don't drift out too far or else you can get a slowdown penalty. Those two bends will bite a lot of drivers before the day is out. Then we climb back up out of the valley and hold to the left. Alta is the tightest of the 3 chicanes on this track. While passes can be made, your competitor will need to cooperate or else you'll likely tangle. Once again, watch the AstroTurf because it's slippery. Then we're going to weave back downhill. Try to angle the car so that you have a straighter run into Ravazza. You'll really be stomping the brakes here, and the downhill entry tends to cause a number of drivers to overshoot this corner. You only have a tiny blip on the throttle before you tackle the second apex, which is much more important. Getting a proper run off of here will be critical to your current lap and the next one. Hopefully, though, you kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Imola.
You see a lap around Imola from on board this classic car. And this classic car, of course, has a classic championship, except we're doing a little bit differently now. We mentioned it last week, and well, here is the Sunday Grand Prix Series standings, which just takes into account this race. Norlampi, naturally having won the first 2 rounds, is well ahead. But look at Matt Wood and Steve Bycroft. They are certainly hot on his heels. Only 24 points behind, and with their good performances, it'll only take one slip-up for them to take advantage. Unhola currently in 4th with his consistency, and Rob Olenek, becoming more and more of a presence here in these retro cars, jumps up into the top 5 with his latest finish. What about the team's championship here, Steph? How is that looking here in round 3?
Well, Joe, it is looking quite a lot unchanged from what we saw last round. That's only in the top 2 though, because Renault Elf still ahead of Paramount Racing Team, 3 points between them. But then look at Chitan there. Kip Talbot, Chitan, 8 points behind, plus 4 positions from last round. Scuderia Ferrari losing 2. They're only now 9 points behind, but only in 4th. And then 5th place once again, plus 3 on that one. Marlboro Team Alfa Romeo, 14 points behind Matt Suarez and Timothy Dalton racing for that one. That is quite a jump for both Chitan and Alfa Romeo, and I'm looking for quite a head of steam for that Alfa team, because remember, it's Italy we're here, and that's an Italian team.
Yeah, a lot of pressure to perform for sure. Now, in case you've never watched the Sunday Grand Prix series here for the Lotus 79 before, as we mentioned, we are in round 3. The CTC itself has 4 drops. We'll cover that a little bit later here in the intro. The team championship as well, 2 drops. Today's race is 27 laps long, and as you'd expect, with them running a classic style of Formula 1, there's no scheduled stops for fuel or tires. They do have an incident cap, though, just to keep things safe and on track. If you hit 17, you will be disqualified. Easy to rack those up around here, Steph. With all these chicanes I mentioned into the pre-race, slowdown penalties can really change the race here.
Oh, most definitely, especially Variante Alta. That's where you can get some slowdowns on the exit of that one. But most dominantly, as you have mentioned, are those off tracks, because let's be honest, the track is quite narrow. These cars are quite wide, so they're going to use a lot of that track, and most of the times they might find that that limit is a little bit too far to the inside for where their car is taking them.
So we watch Bycroft come around in his qualifying. Matt Wood is our provisional pole sitter. Norlampi in his first lap, only good enough for 7th. Now, he's been on a tear in the first 2 rounds, winning both races, both under quite a bit of pressure along the way. Nuno Moreira puts himself on the front row as well. Alexi Aloma has been one who has been challenging for wins. Let's see if maybe he can do it today. He's on the front row for now, Steph, and has been looking incredibly fast.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Is he here? Norlampi, yes, he is. Wow, Norlampi only 9th place right now. As Fernandez goes fastest now, nearly a 10th ahead as Norlampi comes over the line for his 2nd lap. Let's see what he can do this time around. Puts in a 32.7, only enough for 4th place.
It's surprising, and guess that the Preacher not as strong at this track. I see that Matt Wood has also finished his, so Fernandez is going to start ahead of him regardless. Steve Bycroft in his 2nd lap improves, but only good enough for 5th for him. It's a single split today, Steph, so I'm wondering if this is why we're seeing it so stacked here with everybody piled into one.
It is going to be an interesting dynamic for the race. We have, 33 cars here? No, actually 34 cars here today, which obviously is a little bit more than what they saw in real life in the 1979 championship, as Alexi Aloma comes over the start-finish line with a non-counted lap on his 2nd attempt, so he's going to stay in 6th place. And it is going to be an interesting dynamic, because I'm pretty sure that we will see lap cars play quite a huge role, especially here at nearly said Le Mans here. No, we're obviously at Imola, with those many chicanes that we have here. So what is this race going to hold up for us? Honestly, I don't know.
Kylie improving to 15th on that last lap. Let's take a look at those CTC championships. This one a little bit harder to follow sometimes as they take into account all races during the week. This is effectively the iRacing Championship overall. They have a tie, though, up at the top. Look at Wood and Bycroft. Bycroft jumping up to that top spot. And Olenek with those extra races, not looking too shabby. Also tied in third, down with Tommy Unhola. In fact, we don't have Nora Lampe on this sheet at all. Juanmi Costa, the last of the top five. So they now finish up the qualifying. Just a few seconds left. I see Todd Herner. Looks like he got his first time in, but he won't be able to complete a second. A 38.4, good enough for 30th position. Sergio Morales finishes his second lap and still stays last of the drivers to put a time in. I think that is everybody who's able to finish their laps here.
So, yeah, Alexei Loma in the last turn practicing his starts right now, sitting in 6th place. One thing we have to mention, like I always like to mention, is we have 12 cars within a second of the pole lap. So, yeah, a little bit of a bigger gap than we normally see in the Lotus 79s.
Oh, but will that traffic cause more problems than they expect? Let's go to our starting grid for today with this big field. Sergio Fernandez on the pole. Matt Wood still not able to win here in the Sunday races, starting second with Nuno Moreira in P3. Nora Lampe, who has been the fastest thus far, has been trounced today compared to what we've seen before. He starts fourth. Steve Bycroft, P5. Alexia Loma at Phillip Island was looking good for a while. He's going to start sixth today. He's got some climbing to do. Antti Lepisto, P7. Tommy Unhola, good enough for 8th on the grid with Nicola Kochi 9th. Next to him, rounding out the top 10 is Adam Frazier.
Sami Toikala starting in 11th place. Alongside him, Juanmi Costa in row 6. Row 7 is going to be started by Timo Vaskilampi and completed by Chris Baumann. Theo Schleret in 15th. Richard Chieli in 16th. Rob Olenek, a familiar face on GSRC, is going to start this race in 17th. Alongside number 17 of Pablo Lembras Suarez in 18th. Peter Mikus and Peter Konisny both complete your top 20 on the grid.
The back half of the field, 21st goes to Timothy Reed, Eric Lukel in 22nd. Johnny Stevens will start P23. And you've got Daniel Gattuso on his outside in 24th. Keith Herner starts 25th. Robert Simpkins 26th. And Nicholas Morelli in 27th. Johnny Bell with a 28th place in qualifying. Adnaz Dizdarevich, a little bit far down for what we're used to seeing with him. 29th. Todd Herner will be starting 30th. The last two cars to put a time in were Mark Bredbenner and Sergio Morales. And then we also have Jeff Embury and Pablo Rangel will round out our 34-car field here today as they now line up on the grid. Engines start to rev as everybody's out there now. Lights are up. Green flag is out. Fernandez looking decent at first on the start, but now here comes Matt Wood back at him. Very good in the second phase. He's actually even got a nose ahead as they come up to Tamburello, but this is going to be hard to complete. He outbrakes him into the corner, and he manages to take the lead away in the first corner.
That's a big one behind.
Oh, and that involves Nora Lampe. Everybody's stacking up to try and avoid it, and there's
another
more problems.
Oh, that's a lot of cars.
Kochi involved, many scattering to get around. We'll come back to the replay in a little bit, but that's caused a huge gap from Nora Lampe up to Aloma in 4th as they come around Tosa and climb the hill.
Yeah, and Unhola tried to do something on Nora Lampe, but Nora Lampe actually able to prevail. Now Lepisto trying to go around Unhola, as Unhola has a little bit of a wiggle there up over the hill, and he gets overtaken by Antti. Antti trying to make 2 for 1. Well, let's see if that pays off for him, and it does. No, it doesn't. He goes wide onto the grass. Maybe Unhola. No, Unhola gets closed off, so Lepisto only making a 1 position.
I wonder if Nora Lampe's got some damage from what happened there coming through Tamburello. He was awful slow down to Aqua Minerale, very much pressured, and there's already a train of cars behind him.
Well, on the screens you were able to see Nora Lampe has some damage on his front wing. Seems to be driving all right though right now as he defends from Lepisto.
Up at the front, you can see the top four: Wood, Fernandez, Morera, and Aloma. Let's go to the replay and see exactly what happened here.
Yeah, we're starting off on the starting grid. So, yeah, no Lumpy, not the best starts, I would say. And then in behind, we have already a little bit of a 2-wide situation. And then no Lumpy goes wide, creates a weird 3-wide, and Steve Bycroft nearly flips there. And then
I think he managed to get away without hitting the wall. Then behind, everybody trying to slow up to avoid. I think it was Kochi who initially had the hit. Then he got bumped from behind by Adam Frazier. And, well, I mean, you name a person, and I think someone in there in the back half of the fields at least had contact with somebody else.
yeah, that started once again with, sadly, Nor Lumpy, who was still trying to recover his car. Because of that, Unhola squeezed anti-Lepister a little bit. Lepister had to jump on the brake, causing Toykala to heavily hit his brakes, and then Kochi got sent off, and all of that mayhem. Just, unfortunate lap 1 incident there that caught out a lot of guys.
I think there's going to be some words among drivers after that. So we come back to our leaders. Wood still ahead by about half a second. The closest battle with these top four is for third. That is Morera with a great run out of Ravazza. Aloma with a great run out of Ravazza on Morera. Looks to the outside, but he starts to lack top end speed and falls back. He's going to have to get closer than that for an attempt down to Tamburello, and indeed, not nearly close enough to get aggressive. Can report that in fifth, what damage we thought Norlampi had seems to have been handled because he's still back there holding back Lepisto. And Hola's still with him, and they've got a gap to Vascalampi, so it's 3 cars fighting for a top 5.
Yeah, and obviously because of that huge starting crash, we have a lot of people. Oh, who starts spinning in? That's Frazier! Frazier just had a monstrous spin out of Tamburello.
Already this track causing all kinds of problems. I can't imagine this is an easy track as we watch the replay here, Steph, to try and handle these cars out of so many slow chicanes.
Somehow Frazier was able to keep that spinning Lotus 79 out of the very narrow inside wall there. Obviously Frazier with quite some damage on his rear wing from the starting collision that he was sadly involved in. Oh, he tries to go around the outside of Morales. Darevich spins ahead of him. Lots of scrambling still going on up to the end of lap 3.
And Dizdarevich, I think, got a little bit of help there. Yeah, that was Rob Olenek who clipped his rear end, turned him around on the way out of Aqua Minerale, and that's all she wrote. We had a change for 8th position in the meantime. Vascalampi overtaken by Peter Mikas, 14, having climbed up from 19th spot. He managed to avoid all the trouble at the start and is taking well advantage of the opportunity presented.
Yeah, not only him, but Timo Vascalampi also up 5 as a
Unhola is off Corso. Oh, my goodness. This was in Villeneuve, and it was all on his own.
Yeah, all on his lonesome, and that is quite a heavy impact for that. What is that? That's a Ferrari, sorry. Yeah, has a little bit of entry oversteer, not able to correct it, goes on the curb, surfs a little bit up on that, and heavy front end impact into that wall, and that car is not throwing straight, so he sadly had to retire his car.
He already had a little bit of damage on the front wing that we could see from that, so wonder if that was affecting his handling. Meanwhile, as we come back live, Nuno Morera still under pressure from Aloma. I wonder if we've got 2 different setups going on, because look how good he is out of the corner here, Steph, and then he just falls away.
Yeah, it looks like Aloma is running quite a lot of downforce. Let's actually see what he can do being this close to Nuno. Stalls out, but he's very close to maybe try something on the brakes. No, Nuno very strong on the brakes, so he stays in third place. But this is now great setup for Loma if he can get... Oh! Hoo-hoo! That's some oversteer there for Loma. Still getting good drive out of Tamburello, but once again into Villeneuve, not able to complete his pass.
Looks so strong in the corners, and now he manages to get a nose in into Tosa. He's going to have to be strong, accelerating out of this hairpin as they climb up the hill. And once again, Nuno Moreira starting to pull away. They're not over yet as they reach Piratella, but Aloma decides to think better of it.
Yeah, Aloma seems to have his car set up for quite some good grip. Oh, Nuno Moreira with quite a big mistake there through Aqua Minerale. Let's see if Aloma tries to do something with that as they go into Variante Alta. Not able to do so as Nuno Moreira closes the door on the braking zone.
Boy, he squeezed him pretty close to the edge, but Aloma managed to keep from dipping his wheels into the grass. He's getting a little bit frustrated. It looks like he's trying more and more aggressive moves to make this work, but Moreira is not having any of it. This is where we started to see it kick off multiple times now, coming out of Ravazza down the front stretch. Aloma still riding that slipstream, but that straight line speed of his Lotus is not paying off. They come up to Tamburello. He's not as close as we saw last time, and indeed he's going to stay in line.
Yeah, it seems like Aloma has trimmed out his car quite a lot for qualifying, which really does hamper you in the race setting, as you can see that he just really hits the brick wall once he comes up to speed. But this is a big mistake by Nuno Moreira. Aloma goes to the right side and is finally passed.
So it looked like Nuno saw that one coming and braked a little early. Decided might as well settle for fourth now as we come down to 11th place, which is a train of cars. Juanmi Costa, Peter Konietzki, John Stevens, and Steve Bycroft in there. Now, Bycroft has been climbing back forward since that early incident. He's gotten his way up to 14th. Next on his hit list, as we mentioned, John Stevens right in front of him.
Oh, and that's a big mistake by Stevens, and Bycroft is passed.
Made it easy for Steve on that one. Up to lucky number 13th. So now he has to deal with Konietzki in P12 and Juanmi Costa in front of him as they come up to Alta. They're not too far behind Suarez and Lucal. So this ladder that he's climbing, the rungs aren't too far apart. It looks like the opportunities will keep coming if he can keep this pace. Ooh, our lead is getting awful close, though. Suddenly, Sergio Fernandez finding something within him. The number 13 is right under the gearbox of Matt Wood. They come out of Tamburello. It's hard to pass into Villeneuve. Not sure that he's going to get a chance into here.
He did back out, tried to set up the exit, but not able to very successfully do that. He got a little bit of a run, but obviously not enough to do something into Tosa. Now, once again, they climb the hill nearly to the highest point here at Piratella, then once again down to Aqua Minerale, and then go up to the highest point that is Variante Alta, which just basically means the top chicane.
Meanwhile, we had a pass for 8th, but just behind them, that's kicked off a pass for 9th because Suarez on Vascalampi is demoting him yet another position, and one lap Vascalampi going down to Lucal, the one that managed to get by him before. Lucal with an easy slipstream on the front stretch to make that one happen. Much harder for Suarez, who started it coming through Villeneuve and eventually finished it in Tosa. This has been a little bit of a messy race compared to what we've seen in the past for this series, but drivers are starting to come into their own with some aggressive but fair moves. On board with Bycroft looking up ahead at Konietzki. He's got a run on the front stretch. He's going to get the slipstream. Is this going to be enough as they hug that right side coming right up next to the pit wall? Now he really starts to gain, and Vascalampi's looking incredibly slow. I wonder if he's damaged. He's going to get 2 more places lost here, potentially. Tries to steer in, and Peter is there. 1 gets by, but Bycroft cannot get through as well.
Oh yeah, Vascalampi really damaged. Just look at how much this car is actually slower.
Was that a wreck behind them that we saw? What was going on there? That was a huge slide by Juanmi Costa. Just in the background, our cameras barely caught it. That was a monster save.
Once again, another save by Juanmi Costa, really putting... What car even is that?
Meanwhile, another pass for Steve Bycroft. His tear through the field just does not end. Peter Konieczny, the next to be demoted.
Yeah, once we see that car from the front, you can really see how much damage Vascalampi is carrying on that nose. Really, I'm honestly surprised that those front wings are even still attached to the car.
We come back to the lead. Matt Wood is still leading Fernandez, but the pressure is on. 0.3 of a second between them. They've got no pressure from behind as they've dropped Aloma by about 3 seconds. They come out of Tamburello.
They have pressure from the front, meaning Theo Schleret is coming up to be lapped by Matt Wood and Sergio Fernandez. And we have said it before, this track very hard to actually let someone pass without them losing too much time.
Up towards Piratella, that blind rise into the fast left-hander. Don't need to go to it, but Costa lost more positions to Reed and Bauman. That drops him to 16th. He has got to be having a pretty serious problem out there. Meanwhile, as they come up to the lap traffic, he's going to let them by. Schleret just pulls over before Alta. I think it might be Schleret, actually. I see he's a French driver.
I'm actually not sure about that, because it seems to be a non-French name. Either way, Noah Lampi now and Lepister also now passed Theo, who is that last by quite some bit, just limping around his damaged car. Sergio Fernandez once again close, but not close enough.
Meanwhile, we come down to Olenek and Bell. Olenek just got by him through Piratella with another hard pass done. That gets him up to 19th. Still not done with 9th and 10th because Suarez and Bycroft duking it out. Bycroft, who qualified well up the field, is trying to get back to where he started. He's fended off with the defensive move from Suarez down into Tamburello. They're also following behind Lucal in P8, so that's going to be the next car up for Steve.
I mean, this pass is going to be one of the hardest passes for Bycroft because it is Pablo Lumbrera Suarez ahead of him. And Suarez normally not a guy we see this far down the field. Now, Suarez himself, very bad qualifying. He started in 18th, right now 9th, as you can see.
Something's wrong with Olenek. I think this is Villeneuve.
No, that's Tamburello. Turn 1.
Tamburello, yeah.
Let's see what happened to him as we go on to replay.
He just outbraked himself, I think.
No, that's just a weird wreck, or spin rather, because he just lost the rear. Applying the brake, just lost the rear. Seems to have downshifted too fast or something like that, because that is a very unusual spin for him.
As we come back live, 17th, getting awful close. Simpkins and Herner in the mid-pack with a tight little fight. Another of our Ferraris being chased. Simpkins in the number 24, the blue and red machine that you see, continuing to hound him as they come down into Ravazza.
Speaking about hounding, that's exactly what Bycroft and Suarez are doing with Lucal, trying to go for 8th, 3 wide, not working out. Lucal able to defend his 8th place into Tamburello. Or does he, as he nearly spins out? That opens the door for Suarez. Probably also for Bycroft. Yes, in very deed. Lucal with one little mistake, losing 2 positions.
Whooshing by, he falls to 10th. Bycroft up to 9th now. Suarez in that Alfa Romeo. You talked about the pressure to perform well here at a home track. Well, he's holding back Steve Bycroft for the moment. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do that for the remainder of the race. There's a lot of laps left to go. They have slowed each other up a little bit. Worth noting that Peter Konietzki has gained ground on them. Coming up towards Alta, Bycroft poking his nose in, just prodding and seeing what potentially is there as they swing through the chicane.
And meanwhile, that is going on. The battle for P5 actually is starting to shape up a little bit. That is the battle of the Finns. Antti Lepistö versus Juha Norlampi. Norlampi looking a little bit like in sort of preservation mode because he has the damage.
On screen, Bycroft has got a great run down the front stretch. Suarez has no defense this time. He's been defending a couple of corners, but at this point, it was easy pickings for the number 3 into Tamburello. That gets him up to 8th. Now, as we take a look at that battle we were talking about between Norlampi and Lepistö, it was 2 wins on the trot at the start of the season. I don't think the Preacher's going to be able to make it a hat trick, unfortunately. Both the number 1 and the number 2 car languishing a little bit after that damage in the lap 1 incident.
Yeah, but also Lepistö not looking all too strong, especially in the straight line speed. So it is going to be interesting what happens between them in this battle, because they are already nearly 8 seconds behind Matt Wood and Fernandez. And Fernandez, also another story, already 1.5 seconds nearly back on Matt Wood. So it seems like that battle for P1 is also on hold right now.
I think Wood has defended himself pretty successfully, at least to keep Fernandez at bay. And Norlampi being gained upon by Lepistö on the front stretch, but it's just not quite long enough now that they hit the braking for Tamburello. They've lost severe touch with Nuno Moreira up ahead of... actually, no, Moreira's falling back into their clutches, I believe. So we got a little bit of a battle for 9th as well. Lucal may have been passed by Suarez after his mistake, but he's looking to get that back, especially before Konietzki rocks up to his gearbox. Come out of Tamburello. Lucal in the yellow car that you see, the red and white Alfa Romeo of Suarez ahead of him. And then behind, that is the Williams of Konietzki in the green and white out of Tosa. This is looking very good for Lucal with good accelerations, but this is a short straight into a fast corner, just not quite close enough. Keeping the pressure on as the Iberian driver with a mirror full of Eric Lucal up the hill towards Alta once more. One little mistake is all it's going to take, and Eric knows that well. That's how he found himself in this position in the first place.
Interestingly, you can see it on the top right. Alexia Loma, 3rd place driver, 2.5 seconds behind Matt Wood, just posted the fastest lap of the race. Also interestingly, Eric Lucal very fast through the slow speed turns as he makes a big mistake there out of the last turn.
He was setting himself up so well, Steph. I thought for sure this was going to be it. And instead, look at this. Here comes Peter. I think, Steph, he's going to be able to get this one done.
It most definitely looks as he does not defend the inside. Peter Konietzki able to take that one and says, thank you very much. I take that 10th place.
Mistake-laden day for Eric is costing him spots. And that demotes him now to 11th, outside the top 10. So we've got something happening with Teemu Vaskalampi. Did he I think he's the one that we said had damage. Yeah, he's been falling down the order. So he lost a position both to Timothy Reed and Chris Baumann. That was both within the last 2 laps.
And Alexei Aloma has pretty much caught the train of Sergio Fernandez. So second and third are now more likely to be happening probably in the next few laps, especially with the speed Aloma has over Fernandez.
It's been reeling them in bit by bit. I mentioned that Alexei has been very fast this season, even though he didn't get the results he wanted at Phillip Island. Clearly, he has doubled down and is working hard to see what he can do with that pace here today at Imola. Wow, look at him gain just through Villeneuve alone. That car is looking very steady.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Alexei finish P2 in Phillip Island?
But I thought he had wrecked out. You might be right, and maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. I do remember he was applying pressure for much of the race.
Yeah, I know that one Finn was in second place in Phillip Island.
We'll have to go check the stats on that. But he's now cut it down to 9/10 of a second. It's been as close as 8/10 of a second on Sergio Fernandez. I wonder if we could pull up the lap comparison between Aloma and Wood, though. Because, yes, he's gaining on Fernandez, but what does his pace look like compared to the number 4? He's gaining on everybody. Look at that, consistently quicker. And he's got a little less than half the race left to go. This win could be on for the Finn.
And I just looked into my record boards, and yes, Alexei Aloma did finish second place. He was only second place because he made the mistake hunting down Juha Nolampi. So Aloma, don't write him off being third, 2.2 seconds back, because once again, 133.303 fastest lap by far right now. He is stronger and stronger the longer this race goes on. And Matt Wood, once again, very bad timing. He catches Sergio Morales and Adnan Dishtarevich, fighting for 23rd overall going into Tosa.
Apologies to Aloma with my bad memory. So we watch them now deal with that lap traffic. Fernandez going to be the next to have to try and get by Morales, who slows up, sees all 3 of them. Nicely done. Look at that. Everybody cleanly by. As that was happening, I'm not sure if we want to stay up at the front, but Olenek had managed to get by Bell a second time and is getting ready to overtake Herner. This is a 19th. Olenek has not had a race that he's probably going to remember fondly, but he's making good on his good pace.
The interesting part that comes up now with Aloma is, how is his setup now? Remember back to Phillip Island 1 week ago, he had quite a downforce heavy setup, which did allow him in the latter part of the races to stay very close with Juha Nolampi until Alexei made his mistake. Now, if he went for the same philosophy this week, he is going to have to work a little bit harder, because we have much slower turns leading up to fast straights. But if he plays his cards right and he is a very excellent late breaker, then Alexei Aloma most definitely can stay with the guys ahead and outbrake them into those very slow turns.
As we jump back to 5th place, Nora Lampi still dealing with Lepisto, but now they have the traffic of Morales in front of them. This could be the pick that Lepisto has been waiting for. Nope, looks like Morales is 2 heads up for that. He pulls out of the way. In fact, no, it disadvantages Lepisto coming out of Tosa as he couldn't make the car disappear on the exit. Been a lot of action out here today, and we still have so many laps left to go. Going to be 10 to go at the line. Now they're going to be lapping Adnan Dizdarevich. who is overtaken by Morera. Oh, Aloma's finally caught Fernandez, though. And they're coming up to Ravazza. This is going to be a critical corner, Steph. If he can get the launch, this might be his chance.
Yeah, Fernandez made a big mistake through Tossa. I was ready to shout into you commentating because of how close Aloma got, but Fernandez was able to defend his position without even getting challenged. But now here comes Aloma. Look at how much he's stalling out in the draft. That means Aloma once again using quite a lot of downforce to his advantage. But look at how much later he's able to brake and stays clean through the apexes where Fernandez is not. So Fernandez most definitely pushing to stay ahead of Aloma and get closer to Matt Wood, who once again runs up to the next battle pack of Pablo Rangel and Johnny Bell for 21st.
Oof, that was a good example right there of how quick Aloma is in the slower corners through Villeneuve. He got right underneath the rear wing of Fernandez, but couldn't do anything with it. Almost looks like, Steph, all he needs to do is just set himself up to keep that momentum off of one of the slow corners, and he could just breeze by him.
Speaking about slow corners, oh, that's very bad.
That's Rangel, who pulls off to the side and lets them through, but once again, lap traffic's got nowhere to go. Aloma right underneath Fernandez, coming up to Alta, but still can't do anything with it. Back down the hill into the final two corners of Ravazza. Up ahead, Johnny Bell now separating themselves and Matt Wood. Wood really doing a fantastic job with the traffic here. He's separated himself by about a second and a half to this battle for P2. And Sergio Fernandez, unfortunately, balked at the exit of Ravazza, gives the slipstream to Alexi Aloma as they come down the pit straight. Aloma's top-end speed has not been his friend today. Can he use that slipstream to finally get the pass done? He's going to look for it. Is late on the brakes down into Tamburello. Give P2 to the Finn.
And there we have the example of how good Alexi is on the latest of late breakers. Perfectly executing that pass, doesn't need the draft whatsoever, just goes alongside and boom, I'm here. Boom, you're to third place. Now, Alexi Aloma has a little bit to catch up with Matt Wood. He has the pace too. So if he can stay with Matt Wood and do the exact same thing like he did to Fernandez, he most definitely has a very big chance of walking away victorious here today.
You saw he's been faster. You're right, there's a good chance that he could do this as we take a look at 7th. Mikus and Bycroft. Bycroft qualified in P5, so he's only 3 spots away from where he gridded up to at least nullify that horrendous start that he had with the contact. But as he gets aggressive, a defensive move from Mikus is going to hold him at bay, hitting Piratella. He's going to have to try another corner. Bycroft in that number 3. Clearly one of the higher I ratings here in this very stacked field. 6,000 plus for Steve. The Hoosier knows how to drive an open wheel car. They come down towards Ravazza. He's been slicing through the others, but now with the talent up at the top, going to be a little bit harder.
Coming down to Tamburello is Antilepister and Lampi. Lampi able to defend his position, but for how much longer, as Antilepister nearly already smelling that gearbox fluid, as they also start to catch 4th place of Nuno Moreira. So most definitely this battle is starting to soon be a 3-car battle for not 5th, but 4th.
And Steve did get the spot with the run down the front stretch. Mikus now demoted to 8th. Bycroft is 7th as we continue to watch this fight. Heading up the hill, Nuno Moreira keeping that steady pace, hoping that the lap traffic will keep swinging his way. Nora Lampi, though, is down to 0.7 of a second behind that yellow machine. Down to 8 laps to go. Going to very soon be 7 to go. Ooh, a bad exit off of Alta, though. Here comes Lepisto. This is the closest he's been. Defensive move to the inside from Nora Lampi. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to hold him off, and indeed, by the first apex, he's chopped off as Lepisto, finally, after nearly the entire race behind the Preacher, has claimed 5th.
And watch now, Lepisto, he is most definitely faster than the Preacher, so Lepisto probably gonna get quite quickly up to the yellow car of Nuno Moreira and try to challenge him for that 4th place.
We've got a replay on the pass for 7th with Steve. Let's take a look at that. You can see coming out of Ravazza. This is what some of our drivers with high downforce have been trying to do, Steph, but just haven't been successful.
Yeah, as you said, the climb gets steeper and steeper for Bycroft, and now that he's getting quite deeply into the top 10, but this time around he was able to successfully get past the number 14 of Peter Miku's. Next car in line is Johan Olampi as we jump you back to the battle for P9 between Pablo Lumbrera Soares and Eric Lucal.
That Lucal just lost that spot out of Ravazza. Another mistake. Boy, the rear tires have got to be shot on the number 26 because every single time... and look at this. 4th place. Antti Lepisto is making short work on trying to attack Nuno Moreira. The number 6. I thought that he would have a little bit more time to worry about things, but no, he's already got to be looking in his mirrors as the Finn is applying immense pressure.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a traffic help for Lepisto, so it just shows how much he was held up by his countryman of Nolampi. Probably not trying, or will try to do something into Tamburello. Let's have a look as they go past the start-finish lights once again. And no as the break at the 150 meter board. And Lepisto too far away to do something into turn 2.
Oh, but he's looking a little strong coming out of Tamburello. Can't carry the speed as well as Moreira. They come into Villeneuve, and then the slow left-hander of Tosa, uphill, hairpin, climbing the whole way. Don't forget, behind them, they've still got Norlampi in this mix, and even though he's been recently passed by Lepisto, I have a feeling he won't sit around if he sees a door open.
Oh, most definitely not. The Preacher knows his chances, and that's exactly what he will do. So if Juha is presented a gap, he will go for that if it is judged big enough to stick his Lotus 79 in that one.
We'll stay with this. Just a note, Luca lost another one to Konecki and fell to 11th. I didn't see quite how that happened, but clearly Eric not liking this car and track combo. Down into Ravazza, Moreira still ahead of Lepisto, but for how long? It'll be 5 to go at the line. Look at him try and break the draft. He immediately swings all the way left, and it worked fairly well. He's got a pretty safe gap now. And all this, I don't think we've talked too much about the weather conditions. It's 105 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface of the circuit. So it's fairly hot, not the hottest we've seen in some of these races. Meanwhile, Matt Wood, clearly not out of the woods himself. He had a big slide coming off of Tosa with some severe wheel spin. Loma gained down to 0.8 of a second due to that mistake. Come out of Alta now. Fernandez dropping back slightly at about 1.5 seconds behind them. Loma's been close, and he's been trying to gain, but Wood has been responding.
Now, we don't need to go there. I just want to keep you informed on that battle for 4th place. Johan Olampi actually not able to keep up the speed of Moreira and Lepisto, and is slowly starting to drop off that battle as Alexi Loma once again new fastest lap, the first one under 33 a 1 minute 33 as he puts in a 32.977.
Oof, and Matt Wood's mistake coming through Tosa cost him. That last one was a 33.7, nearly a second slower than Aloma. As they come now through Tosa, this is what caught out Wood last time. He's looking much more smooth as we ride on board with the Finn. This is becoming familiar territory for Alexi. He was chasing in second last round and finished in second. As you mentioned, his own error cost him a chance at the win in the dying stages of the race. Can he redeem himself today?
Oh, I'm honestly pretty sure that Aloma will find a way past Matt Wood. Matt Wood has to think a little bit of the bigger picture, the CTC in his Renault. He has to think a little bit about the championship of which Aloma is not part. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure Matt Wood kind of knows the writing on the walls. He will probably try to defend his first place as it's only 3 laps to go now. So it is going to be one heck of a challenge for those last 3 laps though.
Both of them clearly pushing hard. They crossed the line much better this time with a 33.2 from Matt Wood. A 33.2 matched by Alexi Aloma. Still Fernandez hovering behind them at about a 1.5 seconds behind. He's been at least keeping himself in touch. And though if these two start fighting now, Steph, I think that'll bring Fernandez into it. If it comes down to the last lap, I'm not sure that Sergio's really close enough to take advantage.
Sergio is driving kind of the same laps as the 2 guys ahead, so he's still part of this, but not really. It is hard in Imola to fight and not lose time, but it's also hard to be behind a battle pack and gain time on the 2 cars ahead. One thing we can say with a certainty, though, is that unless something very bad happens and one of these guys wrecks out, they will finish here today on the podium.
Meanwhile, we were talking about Lepisto applying pressure to Morera earlier. Well, I think Nuno's responded because we haven't seen Antti that much closer than what he was before. They are dropping the number 1 car, Juha Nuolampi. He's 3 seconds behind. Unfortunately, the pace just not with the Preacher.
Yeah, he probably also is thinking more championship right now than trying to go for some risky strategies, try to push a little bit over his 2 days limits and do something stupid as Alexi Aloma 32.961. That's once again a new fastest lap of the race.
As we come back to our leaders, 2 to go. The penultimate lap now. He's got it down to 0.4 seconds, giving it everything he has. But he can't overdrive the car like he did last time at Phillip Island. He's got to remain smooth, just as smooth as Matt Wood needs to stay. Out of Tosa, this time no wheel spin for the number 4. But closing in, Aloma's now got it down to 0.3 seconds. They are coming up on some lap traffic. Schleret is just ahead of them, and he could definitely affect this fight.
Yeah, not only him, but also Mark Bredbrenner is ahead of them, alongside with Timo Vaskilampi and Robert Simpkins. That is a battle for 17th. So yeah, 4 cars coming up to them right now, as Aloma is trying very hard through the Variante Alta, not really getting a reward off of that.
Up into Ravazza, nicely done by Teo. He just stays out of the way. And then up ahead of them, Mark. Is he going to pull off to the side? Yes, indeed he does. He sees what's happening. He knows this is a battle for the lead, and this is perhaps the closest we have seen Alexi Aloma, but he's been hurting on straight line speed. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to get this. Matt Wood coming down into Tamburello does not defend, interestingly. He leaves the door open, but Alexi's not brave enough to stick it in.
And here, now look at that. This might be something into Villeneuve. If he is desperate? No, he is not. He stays behind, but this might set him up now for Tosa. Does he get the run? And not really. So once again, Aloma has to stay behind. Obviously, this is already on the last lap. So these guys are fighting it out on the last chances. Aloma now with a good drive as Matt Wood has some bad exit there out of Tulsa. Can he defend on the inside of Piratello? We're gonna find out now. No, he can't. Yes, he can. No, that's Alexi Aloma with a slide pass.
Outside of Piratella on the last lap, Alexi Aloma. He is not over yet. Look at him go a little deep into Aqua Minerale. Matt Wood still close behind. This could go down to the start-finish line. Wood with a little bit of a peek up to Alta. He's late on the brakes, and this time it is Wood, the leader, former leader, who unfortunately makes the mistake, and Alexi Aloma is scot-free to the finish from here. He climbed his way forward. He had hard work of it, as he did not have a high top end with wing cranked into the car. But Alexi Aloma, after missing out last week, is going to take the victory here in Imola. Wow. Wood finishes in second ahead of Fernandez, and fourth is close between Morera and Lepisto, who continues to try and get that spot away, but he's just a little bit too far back. Lepisto settles for a top 5. Suarez leading Konecki. Could still make a mistake and bring him in, but Peter, about a second back, is going to have to hope for something drastic to happen. Indeed, Suarez keeping himself safe and increasing the gap through Alta as they come upon some lap traffic that should be able to finish ahead of them. The Alfa Romeo of the number 17 in Italy here is going to manage to solidify 9th. Now let's take a look at the replay here. Are we looking at the pass for the lead, or I believe we had... Yeah, here we go. Man, with the lack of downforce that Wood had, Steph, it looked like Aloma knew what he was doing, that all he had to do was power around the outside, because it was of 2 corners that he was on the outside. He still made it stick.
Yeah, quite honestly, the only place where Wood would have been able to defend that pass is if he would have been on the outside with the less downforce that he had. Aloma, it would have been a little bit of a stalemate, probably out of Pirotella, if Aloma would have been on the inside of that turn. But like that, Matt Wood, less downforce, with the slower turning speed, he obviously had to concede that position, because Aloma, with the higher downforce, just able to carry so much more speed on the outside.
We're going to take a break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel after a breathtaking race. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. And then on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Imola. Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari here in Italy. But it was a Finn who won today. Alexia Loma on the very last lap of the race managed to overtake Matt Wood and get victory where he missed out last week. And Matt Wood, unfortunately, settling for second, probably, as Steph mentioned, thinking of that CTC championship, which this will help today. Sergio Fernandez rounds out the podium, even though he was on the pole. He mentioned after the race in the chat that the tires were fading on him a little bit, unusual for this car. Nuno Barrera with a P4 with Anti Lepisto hounding him all the way to the line, rounds out your top five. Now, Johan Norlampi, who won the first two rounds, only good enough for sixth after qualifying fourth. He had some contact early on. Hard to say if it was just his pace at this track that hurt him or if there was damage that he was dealing with that set him on the back foot. Steve Bycroft may have qualified fifth and finished seventh, but you still have to admire what the number 3 did, coming back past a ton of cars to get to that seventh spot. Peter Mikus was the last one he overtook, who shouldn't be ashamed of finishing eighth because he qualified 19th. Pablo Suarez with a ninth today, and Peter Konecki rounds out your top 10. Steph?
Another driver to gain 11 positions is the guy in 11th place, Eric Luckel. Starting in 22nd, he finishes, as mentioned, in 11th place. Timothy Reed, right behind him, started 21st, finishes 12th place. John Stevenson, 22, starting 23rd, finishing 13th. Chris Baumann, a guy that went nowhere, quite literally, started in 14th, finishes in 14th. Still, very impressive race from the number 20 there. Quinn Costa going up and going back down because of damage. 12th place to 15th. His race went. Keith Herner finishes 16th. Robert Simpkins, the last car on the lead lap, goes from 26th to 17th. Timo Vaskilampi, very bad race for him. He was quite far up the order because of the wreck that he was sadly involved in, then fell down because of heavy damage to his front wing, only finishes 18th. Rob Olenek, very troublesome race for him, finishing 19th, and Todd Herner, the last car in the top 20, started 30th, so also no small feat for the 32.
A lot of cars finished laps down just due to the large field and big wreck at the start. Dizdarevich 21st, Johnny Bell in 22nd. Then you've got Pablo Rangel, who did his best to stay out of the way of the leaders. He finishes 23rd. Sergio Morales in P24. Then you get to the cars multiple laps down. Brad Benner, who we saw towards the end, 25th. Theo Schlerer in 26th. And now we hit the DNS. Nicholas Morelli, 27th. Embry, Unhola, Frazier, Gattuso, Kochi, very unhappy after the incident at the start. He unfortunately was caught up with the checkup in 32nd. Toikala in 33rd. And Chieli, the last on the field. So we've got our winner ready to talk to us. And boy, what an exciting race for you today, Alexi. You missed out on the win last time after chasing down the lead from second place. And today it feels like you seem to have redeemed yourself with this pass on the last lap.
Yeah, it was really tough race. I didn't make it any easy for me by messing up the qualifying, but yeah, it was incredible race.
Clearly celebrating with some libations afterwards. I mean, what's going through your head as you get up to Matt Wood there? And did you have a lot of downforce cranked into the car? We saw that it seemed like in a straight line, you weren't having the easiest of time catching drivers.
Yeah, I didn't test that much this week, and well, I just look on the on practice servers. Luckily, fast people do practice servers here, so I can kind of spy what they have, and I just put it somewhere close. But it seemed like I didn't have two little wings this time, and I think my fifth gear wasn't that long, so I couldn't really have the top speed. But in the slow corners, I could get some moves on.
Yeah, did you take that into account coming into the final lap? Because making that pass around the outside had to be difficult, especially late in the race where there should be some marbles off the racing line. Did you know that would stick?
Well, you never know, but I felt like my car at Phillip Island here, it has been really fast, especially in the those corners where you don't really have any downforce. So yeah, that's what I thought would be the best place, especially when I was given a chance to try it. normally it's not easy just coming from really far away back. But I think Matt made a bit small mistake in the previous corner, which allowed to me to get good run outside.
Well, fantastic stuff regardless. Next week, we're going to new territory. Have you had a chance to race at Barcelona, and especially with this car yet?
Yeah, I have done some fun races there with the same layout we are going to run next week. So yeah, it's my favorite layout of the track, and I think it's a good track for pretty much any car. So it's going to be fun.
Yep, Formula One at Barcelona. So it should be a very fitting race. Well, congratulations once again. You gave us a lot of thrills to watch, and that was one for the ages on the last lap. We hope to talk to you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
That was our winner, Alexi Aloma, with some debate here in the booth as to what exactly he was drinking there in the background. But we're going to close up here today, of course, with a big thank you to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. Also, we want to thank the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. But additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Stefan, Amjad, and Dougie, as well as Richard Galuska, our spotter behind the scenes, feeding us lots of helpful information. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel. Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel. And Instagram is GSRC_Graham. Don't forget, head on over to our YouTube page and make sure and subscribe there as well. There's a big red button that says so if you haven't done so yet. Click that. You won't miss a moment here on the GSRC. As we mentioned, heading over to Spain, the first Spanish track here on iRacing, Barcelona. That'll be Sunday, October 6th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.